Good evening, everyone. I am Judy Gingell, and I'm a citizen of the Kwanlin Dün First Nation. I represent the elders as their representative. I am honored to be asked to come here this evening and to speak on modern-day treaties, importance of building partnerships and strengthening relationships. The year 1973 is the most important year for me. I had the honor of traveling to Ottawa with Chief Elijah Smith and Yukon First Nation chiefs as part of the Yukon First Nation delegation to deliver the historic document to gather today for our children tomorrow, a statement of grievance which became the foundation for the Yukon land claims agreements. That document led to the signing of the Yukon Umbrella Final Agreement in 1993 and paved the way for the settlement of 11 out of the 14 Yukon First Nations final and self-government agreements over the next decade. The Yukon agreements represent approximately 50% of the modern-day treaties in this country today. While the agreements brought certainty for our people, it also provided us the ability to secure economic prosperity, which I will speak in a bit. Most importantly for us, the agreements represent a partnership and an understanding among governments, Canada, Yukon, and First Nations, about what our relationship is going forward. These agreements are between the governments and are constitutionally protected. These agreements cost First Nations land, rights, and money. These agreements are about all of the things, and they are agreements between governments, not between a First Nation government and the Aboriginal Affairs Department. The agreements gave all governments direction, how we will manage heritage and wildlife, how we will manage land and resources, and most importantly, how we will work together. The agreements, both the treaties themselves and the self-government agreements, are based on the principles of sharing and co-management. They are not about us it's not about us going our separate ways. They are about our shared interests. They provide a map for all of the parties, a way to move forward together. These agreements have positive implications for all Yukoners. This is becoming more evident as we implement them. Ultimately, these agreements can help level the playing field between all governments and help to ensure Canada, Yukon, and First Nations work together to meet the shared priorities. At the same time, the treaties' self-government agreements cannot solve relationships problems that might come about. At our recent Yukon Forum, I spoke the words of a prominent Nisga'a leader who often said, the federal government looks at the treaties as a divorce, and for us, we look at it as a marriage. I say that because Yukon First Nation has always been our treaties at the basis for our new relationship, and indeed, the partnership I mentioned earlier. But we find ourselves having to continuously defend what was negotiated. It is in these circumstances relationships get strained. Although court is the first option, First Nations look to our finding solution. Although court is not the first option, First Nations look to find the resolutions. Other governments have turned to the courts when we disagree on how to move forward. For them, it is about certainty, what we already thought we had in the agreements. We will defend our agreements, however, we would much prefer, discuss matters collaboratively. Our first priority is to remain engaged, hold meaningful discussion, and seek reasonable solutions. If we are going to succeed together as governments, there has to be a willingness to remain open-minded, explore all the options, and be prepared to do things differently. With that said, I will not say we have not been successful in the implementation of our agreements. There have certainly been challenges. Building a government and a new relationship between governments is not an easy task. Much of our success has come from our ability to think outside the box and our willingness to work in collaboration. This is what will enable us to realize the full economic, social, and political potential of our agreements. Today, due in large parts of our modern-day treaties, First Nations are positioned to be major players in the Yukon economy. The agreements have provided many opportunities for First Nations and business ventures, all of which help to contribute to the economic certainty for the future of our people. Intergovernmental initiatives have been established at all levels of government with Canada, Yukon, municipal, and other First Nations in areas such as health, education, justice, and infrastructure. Yukon First Nation Economic Development Corporations and Yukon First Nation Chamber of Commerce have been established. A land registry has been completed, opening up the opportunities for Kwanlin Dün and other First Nations the ability to register land leases with that possibilities of home ownerships are created. And First Nations investments have been made and partnerships established in the areas of air transportation, energy, mining, commercial and real estate development, affordable housing, just to name a few. Back in 1973, you would have never heard or seen any of this. There's only a sampling of how our agreements in a relatively short time have and will benefit not just our communities, but the Yukon as a whole. Ultimately, I believe together we can achieve the vision of our modern-day treaties, the vision of prosperity for all Yukon people. To me, that's reconciliation. Konish Cheese, thank you.